Welcome or welcome back to Mia's Life with Books. Today I'm starting a very exciting reading vlog which is perfect for spooky season, and that is reading Riley Sager books for a week. Now I do actually consider Riley Sager to be one of my favourite authors, even though I have only read 2 of his books, and those were The Only One Left and Middle of the Night, both of which I absolutely loved. So I can't wait to get into more of his books as I really do enjoy his writing and just always have such a good time reading them. So I do own 3 of his books on my Kindle, and I have also got 1 out of the library. So our options for this reading vlog are With a Vengeance, The House Across the Lake, and Lock Every Door on my Kindle. And then the one I got out from the library was Home Before Dark. So obviously Home Before Dark is going to be read in this video since I got it especially out of the library just for this video. And I also think Haunted House vibes are even more perfect for spooky season. As for the other options in this video, I'm not sure which ones I'm going to go for because I don't think I'm going to get all 4 of them read. So I'll probably manage 2 of the Kindle books alongside Home Before Dark. But I think I'm going to start with one of the Kindle ones first. And I honestly have no idea what any of these are about. So I have nothing to go off other than just vibes and what I'm feeling in this moment in time. With a Vengeance is Riley Sager's newest release, so that could be interesting to read. But I also feel like The House Across the Lake is a semi-popular one. And Lock Every Door I haven't heard that much about. So they're all intriguing me for different reasons. I think I'm just going to go with The House Across the Lake. Don't ask me why. I don't know. That's just the one I'm feeling. So I think we're going to start with The House Across the Lake. And I'm very excited to start this video and to start this book and to read more Riley Sager books. And hopefully I will continue to enjoy every one of them. And after this vlog, he will be further consolidated as one of my favourite authors. So I think there's not much left to do, but start reading The House Across the Lake. Of The House Across the Lake, so I thought I'd give my initial impressions and thoughts. I, of course, naturally have not read the synopsis of this book, but I can tell you what I think has been going on so far. So in The House Across the Lake, we follow Casey, who has come back to spend some time at her family's lake house. The last time she was there, her husband drowned, so she's been struggling with her drinking, which is why her mother suggested she come back to the lake house just to have some time away from the spotlight, as she is an actress. And while she has been back at this lake house, she found a pair of her husband's binoculars, and she has been looking at the house across the lake. The house across the lake is very modern, so it's got huge glass windows, so you can pretty much see in with these binoculars. You can see everything that's happening, and it seems like she's starting to see a bit of tension between the married couple that live there. And Casey has started to befriend the woman that lives in the house across the lake, Catherine, who is an ex-supermodel, and again, she's just sensing some tension between them and is seeing some strange things happen. So that's kind of the point that I've got up to, and I'm assuming Casey's gonna see something a bit crazy going on in this house across the lake when she's looking, and I think that's kind of where the story's gonna go from there. So far not too much has happened really, but as I'm only 90 pages in, I still feel like that's kind of part of the setup anyway, but it still got me kind of intrigued. I'm wondering where the direction of the story is gonna go. I think Riley Sager's writing is very easy to read and very easy to get into. It's not like overly complex, but it's still like a high caliber of writing, if that makes sense. This book has a very interesting layout and structure. So we do have a now and before timeline. However, we've spent a lot of time in the before timeline. We kind of just had an intro paragraph in the now timeline, if that makes sense. So I guess we're building up to a big event that's going to happen that will relate back to the now timeline. But within this timeline, we don't necessarily have chapters as such. We don't have numbered or named chapters. They're just kind of like a long reel of text, which is broken into chapters, but it's not necessarily clear chapter breaks, if that makes sense, which is a bit interesting. For me, it's not really making too much of an impact on the way I'm reading it or my experience reading it. I just thought it was something interesting that I'd kind of noticed. So I wonder if there's going to be a bit more of a significance between the way the chapters are done later on. I'm not sure, maybe it was just a random choice, although I feel like choices like that are never random when you're writing a book, but who knows. I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously with Casey's drinking problem, a lot of the time I suppose you won't be able to be completely sure if what she thinks she has seen can be trusted. So I think that's going to be an interesting element to it. I think it kind of makes her slightly a bit of an unreliable narrator, but I'm definitely intrigued to see what else she is going to see in this house and yeah, the direction the story is going to take. And I'm interested to get back into the now timeline to maybe get a bit more of an idea of what happened. Although I suppose it's probably going to work in a way that you're not going to actually find out what happened until we get to the end anyway, regardless of what timeline we're reading. I'm going along with it so far. I wouldn't say I'm as hooked as I have been with Riley Sager's books in the past, but since it's so early on, I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, I'm going along with it. I'm not disliking it. So I think once we get further in it, I'll definitely be more invested and be enjoying it a bit more. I'm not having a bad time reading it. I think I just need to get a bit further into it, and hopefully I will give you another update a bit later on, and hopefully I'll have a bit more to say. It says I've got 3 hours and 17 minutes left, and I don't have anything to do all day apart from read and do some editing, so I definitely have 3 hours of my day to spare to just sit down and finish this throughout the day. Probably won't read it all in one chunk, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna read some more. I was gonna wait to give an update until I only had like 100 or so pages left. To be honest, I am over 200 pages left, so I do have only that amount kind of left, but I had to do the update right now because I just read a big plot twist, and now everything that I thought I knew has gone completely out the window. So now I'm a bit confused, and I just thought I'd give my update now because I can say I don't know what's going on anymore, and I don't know where we're going to go from here and how we are going to find out, like how we are going to get to the point of this plot twist reveal. Because like I said, there was a kind of now and before timeline. Most of it is in the before timeline, but the twist that's been revealed is in the now timeline. So now I'm like, how are we going to go back to the before timeline and make our way to this? And also, what does this mean for the rest of the plot and for everything else? Because I am confused, because I thought I knew what was going on and I thought I had a hold on it, but now I don't think I do. I'm not sure what's going on anymore. That's really thrown me for a loop, but I'm intrigued to see what happens from here, because if it makes sense and it is all pulled together nicely, then I think that's going to be an amazing twist. But if it goes a bit off the rails, then I might end up being a slightly bit disappointed, because I have been really invested the more that I've read, because more has been happening. So I was getting really into it, but this has thrown me out of it a little bit. So I'm hoping we'll have a good kind of explanation for this twist and it will all link together nicely. Otherwise, I'm going to be feeling left a bit out of the loop. It definitely does want to make me keep reading, and it's definitely shocked me. So it seems like it's in the workings for a great plot twist, but it just depends if we get the information and the context to back that plot twist up and to kind of further the plot for the last 100 pages for this twist to make sense, because I have many thoughts running around my head now, and none of them are what I thought originally. It seemed very straightforward before, but now this has just made it so much more complicated, and it is not straightforward whatsoever. It is not the simple plot that I thought it was going to be, and if it had stayed that kind of straightforward plot, it still would have been a good book, but this twist has just really thrown everything out. So it could go one of two ways. I could absolutely end up loving it, or it could make me feel a bit less involved and invested, but we shall see. You will find out once I give you my final thought, so fingers crossed I come back with positive notes. I have finished The House Across the Lake and I'm very conflicted. I don't know how to feel. I have so many different contrasting thoughts and feelings surrounding this book. I am a little bit disappointed with this one, and it's all down to one thing: the big twist. Not the twist that I was referring to in the last clip. In fact, this twist was actually worse than what I was envisioning they were going with that one. I think the initial twist that I was on about in the previous clip, that kind of threw me out of it and I had no idea what to think. I think that would have worked really well had they kept that going in the same direction. However, on top of that twist, there was then a completely wild twist that came out of nowhere that just completely took me out of it. And that's why I feel so conflicted, because I really did not like that twist and I did not like the direction the story went in after that twist happened. I'm usually not a hater of having to suspend your disbelief, and I feel like in the previous books that Riley Sager has done, it has been executed well, in the sense of I don't mind suspending my disbelief in the previous books of his that I've read, because it just worked a lot better than this one. But this twist just felt completely outlandish and a bit silly, and it was also very convoluted, and I straight up just simply didn't like that twist at all. I read it and I was like, really? Like, is that really where we're going with this? I will say it was shocking. I didn't see it coming. There was some subtle foreshadowing as well beforehand, which I do think was clever. So in a way, I think it was well done and it was cleverly thought out in some senses, but in other senses, it just kind of ruined the book for me. In this case, it might just be a personal opinion thing for me, and it might not be like the quality of his writing in this book or anything, but personally, I did not enjoy the twist, and that led me to kind of dislike the rest of the book because of the direction it was going in from that twist. And the reason why that makes me feel so conflicted as well is because the first 70% of the book I was really enjoying. Well, I mean, I know, like, I think I said the first 90 or so pages I was still kind of getting into it, like I wasn't fully invested, but I was going along with it. And then after that, it did go positively from there, and I did feel more invested, and I was really enjoying it until the 70% mark with that big twist, and my interest just went completely downhill. There were multiple other twists that were kind of connected to that big twist, and I much preferred those twists, and I think if there was another way that they could have been done and another way that they could have been revealed, it would have been a lot better for me personally. But the way it was executed around the central twist just, yeah, completely took me out of it. It just was not for me, unfortunately. I did enjoy the first 70%. I do think the entire way through Riley Sager's writing of creating a tense atmosphere and a good thriller atmosphere was great, and I don't think that changed throughout the book. There were many times where I did feel like very intense, even after 70% mark where I wasn't enjoying it as much. I still did feel a bit tense, and I was still a bit on edge and a bit creeped out. I did actually feel a bit spooked after I finished this book and I went to bed. So the atmosphere was definitely still there, and the feelings that you get from a Riley Sager thriller was still there, which is again why I am so conflicted, because everything else was great. It was just that one plot point that changed the trajectory of the story that just did not agree with me, and I just did not like. So it was very hard for me to settle on a rating for this, but I have gone with 3.5 just because of my enjoyment of the book up until that point. And I suppose, like I said, I can see kind of how the twist was still clever. It just wasn't a twist that I was a big fan of. I have seen similar things executed better, like I said, even in his own books. But unfortunately, I was just left feeling a bit disappointed because of everything I have explained. So I kind of feel like I couldn't give it more than 3.5 stars, and it's possibly even closer to a 3, but I think I kind of settled on the 3.5 star just because of how much I enjoyed the first majority of the book. But yeah, it could be closer to a 3, but I think we're just gonna go for a 3.5. Otherwise, I'll be back and forth. A bit of a shame about that one. I wasn't expecting it to go the direction it was going, and I was expecting it to end up probably just being like a good 4-star book, but it just really unfortunately wasn't. I do feel a bit let down and disappointed. However, our next Riley Sager read for this video is gonna be Home Before Dark, and I have high expectations for this one and high hopes because I do know more people that have definitely loved this one. I do feel like The House Across the Lake had a kind of split mixed opinion compared to this one, where I feel like I have only seen positive things, so I'm hoping this one will pick back up a bit more and show me some of the Riley Sager that I have loved before, and I'm hoping he makes it easy for me to suspend my disbelief in this book, unlike the previous one, because this is a haunted house thriller and that's all I know about it. But I feel like haunted house, sometimes you may have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. I for one don't really believe in ghosts. If he pulls it off well, which I'm sure he will in this book, that's the bookmark, then I will quite happily suspend my disbelief for him if it is executed well. I am actually very excited to dive into this one, and I hope it makes up for the ending of The House Across the Lake, because it was not for me. I'm hoping this one will be for me. So let's all keep our fingers crossed, and I will update you soon. Confession to make. I haven't updated you since I started this book because I have now finished it, but I was just so busy I didn't actually have time to update. Essentially, the night that I filmed the clip of me about to start it, I probably read about 100 pages, and that was right before bed, so I couldn't really update then. And then I didn't have time to update in the morning because I was going to uni, and then at uni I read like another 170 pages or something like that, because at that point I was then at like page 314 and only had like 70 pages left anyway, and I couldn't then do an update when I got home because I'd gone to the train station to meet my boyfriend, as my boyfriend had come down for the night and the next day, just as a quick little visit. So I was then with him, so I couldn't update. By the time he had left, it was then the evening, and I kind of was just really tired and kind of forgot a little bit to give an update before I read the final 70 pages, because then once he'd left, I then did finish the book. It's a mix of not having time and also kind of forgetting to update, but now I can just give you my final thoughts and final review in just this clip, and hope that you guys don't mind. But to be honest, my opinions of this didn't really change. The entire way through I felt the same, and that was that I was absolutely loving it, absolutely enjoying it. And I did end up giving this one 5 stars, spoiler alert. So this was so much better than the previous book I read, and this definitely made it up for me. So I now have 2 5-star Riley Sager books and 1 4-star and 1 3.5, kind of 3. So I think most of the books I have read have been positive, and of course we still have one more to read in this vlog, so hopefully if that's a good one too, then we can kind of forget about the slightly lower rated one and still confirm that Riley Sager is one of my favourite authors. But anyway, let's talk about this book. So in Home Before Dark, we have our character Maggie, and when Maggie was a child, her and her family moved into this huge kind of Victorian, spooky kind of house that had a lot of kind of morbid history to it, and they only stayed there for 3 weeks before they ran away in the middle of the night, leaving everything behind, claiming that the house was haunted. And Maggie's father wrote a memoir that talked about their whole experience there, which became a worldwide phenomenon and kind of followed Maggie throughout her whole life. But Maggie was only young when this happened. She was 5, and she has very, very little memory of what happened during those 3 weeks at Banbury Hall. She has no way of knowing if what her father had written was actually true or if it was all made up. And because she can't remember anything, she does ultimately believe that her father did make it up, but she has spent her whole life not having confirmation of that. Then we fast forward to the present, where Maggie now has to go back to Banbury Hall, and it seems like events are repeating themselves, and it seems like there may have been some truth to that memoir after all, and we just followed Maggie trying to find out the truth essentially of what happened all those years ago. So we do get chapters of the memoir within this, which I absolutely loved. I already loved the book within a book trope, but the fact that it was actual full chapters that we got from this memoir was so interesting to me, and also they were very intense, and they were the parts that made me on the edge of my seat the most. They were actually kind of spooky, like I was genuinely spooked out. This was another one where when it was nighttime and I was reading at nighttime, I was a bit paranoid and I was a bit spooked out, and I was also visibly recoiling and feeling sick at certain points of this book just because of certain scenes. Some of them were a bit gross. There's a few scenes in this book to do with the idea of snake, and that just made me feel a bit ill. Like the descriptions of it was done so well and so vividly that it did make me feel gross and on edge. So I was sat at uni reading that scene, probably looking like an absolute weirdo, looking so shocked and disgusted by this book. I think having those chapters in there were a great addition, because like I said, not only did they draw out all of these different emotions from me, but they also added so much to the plot, because you were kind of revealing what the memoir story was as we went along, and seeing comparisons and kind of Easter eggs, I suppose, of things that had happened in the memoir and things that were happening now. And it was almost again like trying to piece together a puzzle, and you were also trying to figure out whether what was in the memoir was true or not, and how could it be true, and what happens if it is true. Like there were a lot of different questions and mysteries surrounding that book. The present timeline itself was also very interesting in that sense. It did also have me on the edge of my seat, and again had me trying to figure out the mysteries. Like it was all connected very well, and also it was all wrapped up very satisfyingly. There were so many twists and turns that I didn't see coming, but they were so well done and so satisfying, and I feel like I was very pleased with them compared to the previous book that we read. I just think they all made sense, and they were all done so cleverly, and I could see seeds of what had happened that related to those twists, if that makes sense. They were all done so well, and I still didn't see them coming, but then when I thought about it, it made complete sense, and they were just amazing twists that I think worked so well with the story, and also in a way really changed the meaning of certain parts and threads of the story, and kind of changed your whole outlook on the situation, which I think was really interesting, because it kind of changed everything that you thought you knew the entire time. Just when you thought you had figured it out, there was another twist or another element added that made you question everything again, which again keeping you on your toes, keeping you invested and intrigued. And I really was invested and intrigued. I was literally addicted to this. When I was reading it, I just didn't want to put it down. When I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about reading it, apart from when I was spending time with my boyfriend, because I was having a nice time with him So admittedly then I wasn't thinking about reading this, but other than that I was thinking about this and thinking about how it was going to end and thinking about what was going to happen next. So the plot itself was absolutely phenomenal, and I think it was a really interesting premise and executed very well, and I just really enjoyed it. I think the atmosphere as well was excellent in this. As I was kind of saying before, I do think no matter what, Riley Sager does create very chilling and very evocative and good atmospheres in his book, and the settings are always interesting. They always live up to that kind of thriller aspect. I think the settings and the atmosphere that was created in this was again just on another level, and I think this is a perfect spooky season read. There's still time. I think even when this vlog comes out, there's still time to pick this up before spooky season is over, and I think you definitely should, because honestly it was so good, hence why I gave it 5 stars. It's not often that I do give thrillers 5 stars. You really have to be addicted and invested in a thriller to give it 5 stars, and this just ticked all the boxes for me. As I mentioned, the plot and the atmosphere and the settings, they were all amazing. The writing style was great, it was gripping, very easy to read, and it hooks you in so quickly. I just honestly think this was an amazing thriller, an amazing read. I loved every minute of it. I just had the best time reading it, and I'm so glad that I did, because this is really made up for the previous read. So I'm so glad we got a 5-star, and I think this is going to be one of my favourite thrillers, because it was just that good. I would definitely recommend this one, because it honestly was just amazing. Like, I have no complaints about it, so please do read this one. Hopefully we stay on this positive vibes as we go into our next Riley Sager read, and hopefully we don't dip back down, although after this one they are big shoes to fill. I have hope, because I am going to pick up With a Vengeance, which is his newest release. The other Riley Sager book that I have rated 5 stars was his release prior to this one, so I'm thinking because it was a more recent release that I gave 5 stars to, perhaps this one will be closer to 5 stars as well. So I'm hoping this one might have similar feelings, and I might enjoy it the way that I enjoyed Middle of the Night. I don't know anything about this one other than the fact that I think it is set on the train, and I think it is historical, which is interesting to me. So I'm definitely intrigued to find out more about it, and definitely to start it. And I haven't actually heard too much about this one, so I don't even really know what to expect opinions wise, and also obviously plot wise, because like I said, all I know is that it's historical and is set on a train, so that could really go anywhere. So I'm very curious to see what I think of this one. I'm hoping it's going to be a positive experience, and like I said, we can continue the positive vibes that we had from Home Before Dark. I promise this time I will update you guys at least once before I give my final thoughts. Let's just get into it. I literally haven't even read a page yet. I have also got changed into some more comfier clothes and my dressing gown, as you can see. But I have just realised this book is over 470 pages. Why is a thriller over 470 pages? Is it ever that deep? Does it ever need to be that long? I'm not convinced. This better be good, otherwise it's gonna be a long ride, which is kind of funny since it's set on a train. No pun intended. I am actually 200 pages into With a Vengeance, and I have quite a few thoughts. So first of all, With a Vengeance follows our main character Anna, and Anna has essentially lost everything. She lost her brother in a tragic accident, which also led to the loss of her father and then her mother. And all of that loss links back to that one accident, which was centered on a train. Now this train was actually one of her father's creations, but Anna does not believe that it is her father's fault. So she has invited 6 people who she does believe to be at fault onto this train that her father used to own. And she has invited them all there to seek vengeance for her family and how everything she has been destroyed. However, her plan starts to go off the rails when one of those 6 people ends up dead. We do have a bit of a locked door mystery happening at the moment, which I do always find to be very interesting. I always think it's very fun when you get a group of characters stuck in an isolated setting when they're all on their own. There's no escape, there's no way of getting outside help. They're basically stuck with each other with nowhere else to go. And I just find that so fun, and it always leads for very interesting dynamics between characters that you wouldn't always expect to see due to just the close nature of that proximity. It's like forced proximity in a romance, but in a thriller. And instead of getting romance and love out of it, you just get a whole range of other emotions, which are always very fascinating to see play out, as well as all the events that lead off of it, like, for example, murder. I will admit at first, the first part of this book, as this book is separated into parts, basically follow each hour as they're going on this train journey. The first part I was not 100% sure how I was feeling about it, but I think that was mainly just because it was kind of quite introductory to each of the characters, and I felt like we were just getting a lot of kind of information and character setup, which I wasn't as interested about. But once I've actually gotten further into it and the plots actually started happening, I am enjoying it a lot more. So whereas at first I was a bit unsure, I think I am more sure of the fact that I am liking it and I am interested by it. And now I'm kind of seeing maybe why this book possibly needed to be as long as it was, although I have only read 200 pages. I think at this point I don't see how it could be wrapped up or completed in, say, another 150 pages. So I think now it's kind of a bit more clearer maybe as to why this book is 470 pages. But I can't say that confidently until I of course have finished it, because I might actually end up getting 150 pages further and thinking we could wrap this up now instead of going on for a further 120 pages, if you get my drift. I'll have to keep you updated on that one, but for now the 470 pages isn't as much of a problem as I thought it would be, as I have got to the 200 page mark quite quickly. I am flying through it anyway. I don't think it will feel like it's taking me that much longer to complete the book, regardless of whether I feel like it needs to be that length or not. But like I said, I feel like where I stand right now, it is more on the side of it makes sense to need this page extent, but I think that also is very dependent on how the rest of the mystery plays out. I still feel like we are very much in the starting kind of setup of the book, or of the main mystery, if that makes sense. Like, we are fully into the plot. Like, there are things happening, there are big things happening, and there are lots of mysteries and lots of questions to be answered and lots of dynamics already at play. But I still feel like we are at the start of the mystery. I feel like there's still going to be a lot that has to happen, and not to mention the fact we are at the start of the train journey still. I think we've only done 2 or 3 hours or so, and I think of the 200 pages that I have read, other than the long introduction, the long first part, I think it was all very necessary. But I also think the character introductions were also necessary, as there are kind of a big main cast of characters, I suppose you could say, which all have very different histories and stories and personalities that all link in different ways to this accident with the train and Anna's father. So I also think that was all important and all necessary. It just wasn't as interesting to me, but I think having that set up has therefore later on made the plot more interesting, because you kind of know more about the characters. Like, it was definitely necessary to have that, regardless of whether it was the most interesting first part or not. I feel like Riley Sager isn't one of those authors who have unnecessary things added in, so I do have faith it's going to continue that way, and I'll probably have the same thoughts. But anyway, I feel like I've been rambling about whether the page extent is worthy for like 5 minutes now, so let's move on to some of my other thoughts, which is basically just that, like I said, I am now enjoying it more than I was originally, and I think I'm going to continue to enjoy this. I also think this is very different to what I have read from Riley Sager in the past. To me, it just feels very different in lots of different ways. For instance, it feels more mystery than thriller, which I feel like has been kind of prominent in some of his other reads, but I think this one is definitely leaning more towards mystery. It still has the thriller aspects, and I would still say it is a thriller overall. I feel like mystery and thriller are very interwoven and interchangeable a lot of the time anyway, but it does definitely feel like it is more mysterious than thrilling compared to some of his other books. It's also very tonally different, I think, in the writing style, but not in a bad way. I think it feels very sophisticated, also because this is a historical thriller, since we're set in the 1950s, I believe, with a lot of emphasis on the past in the 1940s with the war. I feel like that's very different for Riley Sager to do. I just think that also adds to the kind of atmosphere and the writing style feeling a bit different to what he's done before. I am enjoying it, even though it is very different to his other books, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So it's definitely interesting, and I am intrigued where we go with this, especially because I still have like 270 pages left. I might update you before I finish, but that depends how much I read tonight and when I aim to finish the book. Either way, I will see you in the next clip. You will never believe what I have just realised. So I am on, as my Kindle is telling me, page 347 of 479. Technically 477 is when the acknowledgements start. There was me thinking, oh wow, I've nearly read 300 pages today, and my Kindle's telling me I'm reading like 2 pages a minute, and I was thinking, wow, this is like the fastest I've ever read. And obviously the whole of the last clip, pretty much, I was basically talking about how, you know, it doesn't feel like this book is so long because I'm like speeding through it, and you know, but also saying like, oh, it makes sense as to why there's so many pages left, because like we're not that far into the mystery on page 200. And you know why we weren't that far into the mystery on page 200? Because it's not actually page 200. The hardback has 320 pages. So it's just the Kindle edition that has 477 pages. But usually, obviously, between the Kindle format and the physical copy format, it's not usually that big of a difference, but this one clearly is. So actually, I've figured it out, and I basically read 52 pages yesterday instead of 62. And then I'm now currently on page 294. Wait, hold on. If I'm on page 294, then that's telling me I've got 30 pages left. But I can't have only 30 pages left. Okay, I just realised I messed up and I divided 320 pages by 377 instead of 477. I actually read 41 pages equivalent of the hardback, and I am on page 232. So I've actually read just under 200 pages today, which makes a lot more sense. It also means I have got 100-ish or so normal pages of the hardback left, and also it makes a lot more sense for me thinking it was absolutely crazy for Riley Sager to do a 470 page thriller, because that is so unlike him, and I was right to be shocked by that because it's actually only 320 pages, which makes a lot of sense, and it's actually kind of perfect thriller length. So basically that makes a lot of what I was saying completely redundant, but hey, that's okay, I suppose. I mean, everything I said enjoyment wise still stands, and even though it's not 470 pages in actual physical format, I still think everything that has happened has been necessary. I was right, it makes sense that we still had so much left of the mystery, because obviously we were a lot less further through the book than I had thought. So yeah, just a funny little update there. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it and I can't wait to see how it finishes anyway. So I actually did sit down and finish with A Vengeance last night. So after all of that crazy kind of situation with the page count, I figured I had around 100 pages left, if my calculations were correct. And I just sat down and finished them before I went to bed. Even with the whole page count situation, I still did end up reading the majority of this in one day. And I think that is a testament to how invested I was in it and how it kept me gripped and engaged, because I was definitely eager to keep reading. And as more and more of the plot was being revealed and more events were happening, it just kept building up to that kind of big reveal at the end. I was definitely hooked once I got past the first introductory bit. But I already said I started enjoying it more once the plot actually started, and then my enjoyment levels did stay engaged throughout, which is always good. I feel like it didn't really drop off at any points. I think the pacing was good. It always felt like we were moving forwards in the plot. Didn't feel like we got stuck or that it dropped off at any point. I think that probably helped because we were on that train that kind of had that forward trajectory. Like the plot kind of also had to stay keeping forward because they were getting closer and closer to their final point. So the plot had no choice but to follow along with that kind of time frame. So I think that definitely helped and added an interesting dynamic with that kind of impending doom of the final destination or that final goal end point, depending on which way you look at it and I suppose from which character's perspective. I really did enjoy this setting of the train. It was isolated, no escape, locked room kind of situation. It had all the fun tropes to create a really great atmosphere, and as I've been saying the entire way through this video, I think that's what Riley Sager does really well. And I think because it was on a train, that again was just something very different to what we have seen from Riley Sager before. I mean, it's not unusual to have him have a set location in his thrillers. I feel like that's usually part of the theme of his books, but I think the fact that this one was a train definitely added a different dynamic to it. I think it meant that in terms of creating these twists and turns and even just general plot points, it had to be really thought out just due to that setting, because there's only so much I suppose you can do on a train for it to be realistic enough and to also enable us to have those shocking twists and turns. I think, like I said, it did have to be very thought out, and I think that was done very cleverly and it was executed excellently. Honestly, multiple twists and turns, it just kept adding to this overall mystery and kind of crazy thriller plot. It just became more detailed and detailed as we got more twists thrown in and more information from people's backstories and the history for this plot, which I think in the end did give us a very good overall plot and overall context and setting, character histories, backstories, etc, etc. I feel like everything was very fleshed out and worked very well together. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad I did, because that means 2 out of 3 of the book in this video have been a success. I'm debated giving this one a 4.5 stars, but I think I have settled on a 4. I did really love it, so it definitely deserves at least a 4. I was just thinking, I think when I first finished, I was just kind of hyped up in the, I suppose, adrenaline of finishing the book, excitement of finishing the book, and I kind of thought, oh, you know, this could be a 4.5, but like overnight I've kind of thought on it, obviously not when I was sleeping, but you know what I mean. And I think this morning I have decided to settle on a 4 instead. And a 4-star is still a very good rating, and I love a lot of books that I've rated 4 stars in the past. So I suppose that marks the end of this reading vlog. I would definitely recommend With a Vengeance and Home Before Dark. Maybe The House Across the Lake, but I think that was just a big disappointment to me. And thinking about it now more, I'm leaning more towards 3 stars for that one, but I might keep it at 3.5 because I did enjoy the first 70% so much. So overall, 3.5 isn't awful. I feel like I've been hating on that book a bit, but 3.5 is not a bad rating. So it's not a bad book, so I would still possibly recommend that one, just not as much as Home Before Dark, With a Vengeance, and also the only one left, in Middle of the Night, which I read ages ago. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, please do leave a like and possibly even comment. Maybe comment your favourite Riley Sager book or the one that you're most excited to read from him. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more vlogs like this, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.